up, guys, and welcome to yet another tier list video. I'm your host, BC King, and today's gonna be a really good one because I have seen every Star Wars movie, and today we're gonna rank them all from worst to best, C being my least favorite, and S being top of the class, for me at least. So, without further ado, let's, I guess, get going. Oh, also, wait, before I do that, real quick. We are doing this in chronological order, so based on the Star Wars timeline, we're going to be ranking them that way. So we got the first three up first, and then we got Clone Wars and Solo, and then Rogue One before the other trilogies. So, chronologically, we'll be ranking these, but with that said, on to the tier list. Alright, here we go. So first up, we have Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. By far, one of the most divisive Star Wars films out there. We get introduced to Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the main villain is Darth Maul. They have a pretty good fight scene at the end that ends with Qui-Gon Jinn getting stabbed through the chest. Also, iconic song. But I gotta say, my big issue with this movie is not necessarily the racing scene, like the pod racing scene, but the fact that it's way too long. Like, that whole event drags on way too much and kind of brings the movie down for me in terms of pacing. However, I do like the Gungan City, and when they're attacking the, what do you call it? The army. That's pretty cool, seeing the Gungans fight. I do like Jar Jar Binks. I can see why he's divisive for some people. I like Queen Amidala. Again, Darth Maul's a great villain. Some great music in here. Good fight scenes. But I gotta say, I do agree with the majority of people that think that Phantom Menace is one of the weaker Star Wars films out there, because I do too. And I gotta say, I'm thinking maybe a C+ for Phantom Menace. It's not a bad film by any means. But if we have to rank every Star Wars film, it'd be near the bottom, just based on pacing and some of the character developments, and I don't know. It feels like it's a good return for Star Wars after the original trilogy, but it could have been more in terms of like really fleshing out certain characters and some really good pacing. Because again, that whole pod racing section took way too long for me, and I still enjoyed it. Like, I still enjoyed the race itself, but it was just way too long for me. I kind of wish it was, like, maybe 10 minutes shorter or something, or maybe cut in half. That would have been great. But, still a good movie, so I would say Phantom Menace for me is a solid C+, but definitely one of the weaker Star Wars films out there. Alright, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This one I don't memorize a whole lot of, because I'm a huge 3 fan. We'll get to that in just a second, or I guess in a couple minutes here. But yeah, Attack of the Clones, from what I can remember, is really good. Not that much better than Phantom Menace, in my opinion. But we see General Grievous, we see Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Count Dooku at the end, and Anakin's hand gets cut off. We see Count Dooku fight Yoda at the end as well. So again, a good soundtrack, some good fight scenes. We see Anakin slaughter the Tusken Raiders because they kill his mom, and We do see more of Anakin's character kind of come out before Episode 3, you know, obviously goes all in on that. But yeah, again, I think it is a better movie than Phantom Menace, but not by like a huge margin. We'll get to 3 in just a bit here, but I would say 2 is a solid B for me. Could have been better. I think pacing-wise, it does kind of struggle yet again, and some dialogue can be kind of wooden. Especially Anakin. I love Hayden Christensen as Anakin. I love him, but we can all agree his dialogue with what he was given on the script was not the best at times. It felt kind of wooden, just his general lines and whatnot. But still great. Still a good movie. So I would say, isn't this where the Colosseum scene happens, where they get tied up and they have to fight the enemies and all the Jedi come in and help them? I think so, right? So yeah, 2 is a good movie, but not that great, so probably a solid B for me. Alright, the first Clone Wars movie. You guys know Star Wars The Clone Wars, like the animated series from, what was it, Cartoon Network or whatever it was, is my favorite piece of Star Wars media of all time. I love The Clone Wars. I binged that on Disney Plus, and I had a blast watching it. I love Cad Bane, I love all the villains, I love the animation, I love Ahsoka, obviously. But in terms of the movie that basically starts off the series before season 1 happens, it's really not that good. And a big reason why is the animation. Nowadays, it's beloved, but at the time, people did not like the design of this movie, like the art style. The characters looked like freaking wooden figures and whatnot. And looking back now, I can definitely agree that this movie was not a great way to kick off the Clone Wars, at least the franchise. The first season's kind of rough too, but the movie really got off to a pretty rocky start. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I know Count Dooku's in it, and they fight him at the end. I know Ahsoka and Anakin fight him. Ahsoka's first appearance is in this movie, so that was our first introduction to Ahsoka Tano. We see the clones again. But yeah, I would say it's probably a C movie for me. I think a lot would agree on this. I do think it's probably... I think it might be worse than Phantom Menace. Because it is kind of unmemorable overall, and the animation and pacing can kind of be really rough. But it's still an okay movie. It's just, I think at the time, what they were going for with the art style and the designs of the characters just did not land, or it did not stick the landing fully. But obviously nowadays, this art style is beloved, like with the, you know, the Bad Batch and the last Clone Wars season especially. So it got better, but right here, it was pretty rough. So I can definitely see the argument there. So for me, Clone Wars, the first movie, is it's a solid film, but not too spectacular, so put that bad boy in C tier. However, this next movie, I haven't talked about Star Wars a whole lot on my channel. I know I have from time to time, but if you guys don't know, Episode 3 is far and away my favorite of the Star Wars films. This film, for me, was the biggest turning point in Star Wars. So much happens here. We see Anakin Skywalker fall to the dark side. We see Darth Vader for the first time. We see Order 66. Like, some argue that 5 is the best movie, and I can definitely see why. But I think a lot of people consider 5 to be the best because of a couple things. One, the Darth Vader saying, "I am your father" scene. Iconic. The ending's a bit sad with Han getting captured and whatever else. It's like an Infinity War-esque ending, I guess. But for me, the entire second half of Episode 3 was just an emotional roller coaster. From the moment that Anakin killed Mace Windu from Order 66, and you're seeing all these Jedi die, and then we see Anakin fight Obi-Wan, the entire second half of that movie was just like a roller coaster that never seemed to end, and a good one at that. Like, so much good shit happened. The fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan is iconic, obviously. I think his acting really peaked here with him talking to Obi-Wan. Not the best still, but it was a lot better in my opinion than episodes 1 and 2. So yeah, this movie's great. I adore it. Best Star Wars film of all time. That's going an easy S tier. I think a lot of us would agree that this is S tier because just the stuff that happens in this movie is just so much. We see Count Dooku die as well, and Anakin kills Count Dooku. We see Grievous die. Like, so many big events happen, and the pacing overall is pretty damn good as well. So yeah, amazing fight scenes, amazing character development, an amazing soundtrack, obviously, because that's just, you know, Star Wars always nails the soundtrack anyway. I love Mustafar, the planet, pretty cool place for him to fight at. And seeing Darth Vader for the first time, like seeing how he became Darth Vader, pretty damn cool as well. So, easy S tier for Episode 3 of Star Wars. This next one, Solo: A Star Wars Story. I remember very little about it, and I think I know why. And that's because I did not enjoy it. I thought it was fine, overall. I mean, there's some good fight scenes. I love seeing young Han and Chewie together. But this movie, for me, just did not click. I don't know what it was, like, if it was the characters, or the fight scenes, or just maybe the pacing, or just the overall story. Like, the story is cool. Like, you know, seeing how young Solo became who he is eventually with, like, you know, adult Han Solo. But this one just didn't resonate with me. Like, I watched it, and I was like, it was alright, but I didn't find myself wanting to go back and watch it again. I was like, you know what? It's a one-time watch. I'm good. It was fine for what it was, but I think I'm cool with moving on. You know, I had no big memories of it. The end scene with Darth Maul was pretty cool. Like, seeing Darth Maul, that was a nice surprise. But overall, just probably, like, the most unmemorable film for me when it comes to Star Wars. I didn't find it that enjoyable. I think some people might argue for it, like, being a better film than some of these other ones, but for me, it's probably my least favorite Star Wars film. So that's going in, like, a very, very low, like, C-. I didn't want a D tier because I don't think any of these films are worthy of D tier. But yeah, Solo, a Star Wars story for me is definitely a low C tier. I did not enjoy it that much, and just didn't get invested that much. So sorry, Solo fans, but not the best Star Wars film for me. It's my least favorite. So sorry, not sorry. Alright, Rogue One. I know a lot of people would put Rogue One at, like, an S tier, maybe an A+. But for me, it is kind of similar to Solo, in that I don't memorize a whole lot about it. And I think the reason why is because the characters, at the time, just didn't really click with me. Besides maybe Jyn Erso, obviously, and we saw, like, who is it? Saw Gerrera, right? The ending, though, is pretty damn emotional. We see, the planet get blown up by the army, and then, Jyn and them die. We see, oh my god, I forgot his name, the guy from Andor, what's his name? I'm blanking, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. But he's in the movie, too, that's his first appearance, and we see, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a mind block here. But yeah, Rogue One's a really good movie for me, but I don't think I'd put it in S or A, at least for me. It's still a really good movie. I enjoyed it. It was really enjoyable. I did get emotional at the ending. But for me, I think the other Star Wars films had more to offer for me, for what I look for in a Star Wars film. But Rogue One's still a really good movie, so I'll put Rogue One at a high B, I would say. Again, I know a lot of you would put it at a... Sorry. I know a lot of you would put it at A or S, and that is totally justified. I think it does deserve to be called an S or A film by some people. But again, this is my list, my opinion. I don't hold it to that same high regard. That is my opinion. But I still enjoyed the film. I loved it. Oh, also, the Darth Vader stuff was kind of cool too. At the ending, where we see a recreation of the Episode 4 opening, where he's on the ship and he tries to get the information for the Death Star. That was a really, really well done scene. Like, I think that's better than the Episode 4 opening. Quite literally, like, just the music, the way he moves, just, the way you see him looking out onto the ship that escapes the bigger ship. Really good stuff, so... Yeah, Rogue One, not my favorite, not quite S or A for me, but definitely, like, a high B+. Like, it's right there, but I think I do enjoy the other ones just a little bit more, but we'll get to those. Alright, so Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. I would say this one's probably maybe another B tier for me. It's the first Star Wars film, so it's iconic for all the right reasons. We see Luke Skywalker for the first time, we see, Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's trying to train Luke to take down his father, who is obviously Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker. I think Obi-Wan dies here, right? Doesn't Vader kill him in this episode? I think he does. Unless I'm wrong. I think he does. One of my favorite scenes by far, iconic, is the, these are not the droids you're looking for. What is it? God, what is it? I forgot the name, but it's like a sand area. It's like, where people congregate and whatnot. But yeah, this one I enjoyed. I enjoy a lot, but I don't think it's quite one of my favorites compared to, like, episodes. We'll get to those, but, yeah, A New Hope for me is a really good film, but not my favorite. So I'd say probably a B tier for New Hope, maybe just above Rogue One. But But yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm trying to think of like big moments. Here's the problem. I think I mix up episode 4 and 5 a lot in terms of like what happens in each one, because for a while I thought that the Han Solo freezing thing happened in the 6th movie and it was in the 5th movie. So I keep mixing up like what happens in 4, 5, and 6. But yeah, from what I can recall, 4 is definitely a B tier for me. So yeah, episode 5 though. Okay. People say episode 5 is the best Star Wars movie, and it is very justified. And you know what? I'm gonna say right now, it is definitely an S tier. But again, when comparing 3 and 5, I don't think 5 can compare to the big moments that happened in episode 3. Like, again, in episode 3, the entire second half of that movie is a roller coaster. Episode 5 has its big moments, but they're more spread out. They're not like, you know, all part of one part of the movie. So, you know, the I'm Your Father scene is iconic, the ending, obviously, but I do think 3 has more impactful moments overall than 5, but 5 is still an S tier, one of the best Star Wars movies. Like, the dark tone is great, seeing Han get frozen in the carbonite, seeing, obviously, Luke and Darth Vader battling it out, seeing the whole I'm Your Father confession. Is this where Cloud City happens too, where, the dinner scene happens and Darth Vader tricks them or something? So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I gotta say, like, episode 5 and 3 are really, really close, but I do think 3, for me, takes the cake in terms of being the best Star Wars film for me personally, but episode 5 is still a very, very close second place, and definitely still an S tier for me. Alright, the last one, or not the last one, but the last one of this trilogy, episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Definitely an A tier film. I think it is... See, here's the weird thing. I think out of every trilogy, 4, 5, and 6 are the ones that people really argue over which one's the best. I know the vast majority thinks 5 is the best, and I agree, but I think 6 and 4 kind of go back and forth at times. Like, I would say 5, like, if I had to rank them, it'd be 5, 6, 4, right? Like, 5's the best, and then 6, and then 4's my least favorite. But episode 6, man, like, you want to talk about a satisfying conclusion to a trilogy? There you go, that's pretty damn good. We see Palpatine finally get killed by Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader dies as well. We see Luke fight his father again with, like, you know, him being a full-on Jedi Master. The ending where the Death Star gets blown up again is pretty satisfying. Seeing the Force Ghost at the end with, like, fun fact for you guys probably know this already, but, at the end with the Force Ghost, they did not replace the Force Ghost with Anakin, like with Hayden Christensen, until after episode 3 was out. So, when episode 6 originally came out back in 1983, I think it was, right? The original actor for Darth Vader was the Force Ghost, and then, episode 3 came out, and they replaced that guy with Anakin because people loved Anakin, obviously, so that was kind of a cool touch. I will say, though, I kind of got terrified of this movie because of the Sarlacc pit. Like, the Sarlacc is pretty terrifying. Like, it's a giant monster in a pit, and it is, like, falling in there is, like, a fucking nightmare, because what happens is you fall into its stomach, it kind of eats you, and then you sit there in its stomach and digest for, like, what, 1,000 years? So, if you watch the Boba Fett series on Disney+, you'll see, like, what it's like in there, because Boba Fett actually wakes up in there and he sees like a clone trooper or a stormtrooper like decaying like inside of his suit. So that's pretty terrifying. It's a very enjoyable scene though, I will say. Very enjoyable scene. We see Jabba the Hutt die as well. We see Princess Leia struggle to death. So yeah, it's still a really, really, really good movie, but I don't think it hits the same really high notes as episode 5 and 3 do. So for me, episode 6 is definitely like a very high A tier, but I can see why some might put it in S, and that is justified, but for me, it's just an A, just short of an S, but it's right there. It's still a really, really good movie, one of the best Star Wars films by far. So there we go. Alright, on to the most divisive trilogy of all three of them. Of course, the sequel trilogy. People have... I have seen so many thoughts on these three films that I had to think real hard about which ones I like the best and which ones I like the least. And I think I have my answer now. So, I'll say right now, Episode 7 for me is by far my favorite. And I think it is for a lot of people. Because Episode 7, Star Wars was inactive for... what was it, 12 years? No, 10 years since Episode 3. And I think at that time, like, we knew about Disney buying Star Wars, but a lot of people were kind of conflicted on, like, oh, how do they bring back Star Wars? And then this film got announced, and it was going to be a continuation of Episode 6, like, after the Empire is gone. And we saw the First Order, and we saw the new villain being Kylo Ren, and we saw Rey, of course, and we saw, I don't think they showed Luke at the, like, in the trailer, but I think people kind of hoped he was going to be there anyway. But yeah, The Force Awakens is a really, really, really good movie. I remember watching it, and I enjoyed it all the way through. Just the fan service, the new stuff, the new characters, the music, the fight scenes. Really, really good stuff. Han Solo meets his end, finally. We all saw it coming. And of course, his son is the one who kills him, being Kylo Ren, obviously. And then the ending, of course. We see Rey go to Ahch-To, and we see her find Luke Skywalker, who's now an old man, and he was in exile for like 30 years or something. We see R2-D2 as well, and C-3PO. We see Leia. We see just all these characters come back for the first time in God knows how long, and it was so emotional. And I think this film does a really, really, really good job of mixing in fan service and, like, you know, advancing the story of this new Star Wars timeline, or like the new part of the Star Wars timeline where it's post Episode 6. So it's really good. Episode 7 is definitely an A tier, right above. Actually, you know what? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Honestly, I'll drop a hot take, personally. I think 7 might be better than 6. Not by a whole lot, like a slim margin, but I think for how much I enjoyed it, like, from the start to finish, I think 7's a better film. Pretty hot take there, but I think I'm gonna say that. So if you think if you think 6 is better, then that's fine, but for me, I gotta say, I enjoyed 7 more. It was that good. So, Force Awakens, A+, and there we go. Okay, so Last Jedi is very divisive these days. I think the reason why is because the director was changed from Force Awakens, and he made some changes that didn't sit right with fans in terms of, like, the storytelling from Episode 7's continuation. And I didn't find a huge problem with that. I can see the argument, but I think Last Jedi has that same kind of Empire Strikes Back, like, darker tone to it, where you can feel, like, the darker atmosphere of certain things and whatnot. We see Snoke for the first time. We see Rey and Kylo work together. We see Luke Skywalker pass away at the end. I gotta bring that up. The ending with Luke Skywalker using the Force Ghost to battle Kylo Ren was some really, really good shit. And then seeing Kylo take his lightsaber and, like, poke it through his Force Ghost to, like, see if he's real, and he's like, no. Like, seeing his reaction was so good. And then, you know, because of the power it takes to make a Force Ghost like that for that long, Luke's energy was depleted and he passed away on Ahch-To. But yeah, I can see why Last Jedi is divisive. For me, I do enjoy it a lot, but I will say it's probably an A- for me. Like, I enjoyed it a lot. But I can definitely see why people are divisive on certain elements of it. But I still think it is really, really enjoyable. Again, the darker tone is definitely felt here, and I think it does help to get me more invested, because I do like seeing dark tones in both movies and games. So, yeah, and the locations too, like the ending scene or sorry, the ending planet where they got the giant AT-ATs like blasting the hideout on the planet where like you dig into it and it's like got the red stuff under it. That's a really cool place. I do think Rey's character is probably the worst in this movie compared to the trilogy, even worse than the ninth movie. I don't know. I wasn't really feeling Rey's character here compared to Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. I don't know. Like, he's still good, but I don't think they advanced her character enough for me. I don't know. I gotta rewatch it, I think, but I think if I had to judge Rey's character on all three films, I think Last Jedi is my least favorite. I don't know. I gotta rewatch it. It's not a bad character. It's just I think her depiction based on who like directed the film could have been better compared to the previous movie, for example. So I don't know. But enough about Last Jedi. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. A-, but I can see why people would argue against it being lower on the list. But speaking of lower, we got the last movie, The Rise of Skywalker. Oh man, where do I start here? I don't think it's a bad movie. I do not think it's a bad movie. Some people do, and they have their reasons. It's not bad for me. However, being the conclusion of the Skywalker saga, like the entirety of Star Wars up to this point, it kind of fell flat. It really fell flat. And a big reason why is because of Palpatine. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Palpatine. I love Palpatine. However, if they were gonna bring him back, I think they could have gone a better route with it. And I'm not talking like just, you know, not doing the whole resurrection thing where like it's a clone of him or something, or, you know, he was made on this like, he was made on Exegol where they're like cloning bodies and whatnot. But the biggest reason for me is how he dies. That is the biggest negative for me. And the reason why is because, if you remember, he shoots Force Lightning at Rey's lightsaber, and she deflects it with the other lightsaber because she picks up the two of them, right? And then in doing so, it deflects back onto Palpatine, and then he dies. Here's the problem. We've seen that before. Cough, cough, episode 3, cough, cough. Mace Windu, cough, cough. The exact same thing. That was such a huge detriment for me enjoying this film more. Like, if he was gonna die again, which that's fine, why could they not be more creative with it? Why did they have to repeat the same thing he did against Mace in episode 3? Like, you would think by now that he learned to not do that, because that's the reason why he's now, like, a scarred face-looking man. Because remember, when he first fought Mace Windu, he had a normal face. And because Mace Windu deflected the lightning back at Palpatine with his lightsaber, it deformed Palpatine's face. And you would think by now he would know to not do that. But nope, he does it again, and he dies again because of it. Like, that was such a bad way to have him go out again. Because again, I knew he was going to die again. I saw it coming, but I thought they'd be more creative with it. And I did not enjoy that. Like, at all. I was so mad at that. However, I will say there are some good scenes in here. We see Leia's death because she calls out to Kylo, and she, like, her life energy is gone because of that. We see Chewie's supposed death. We see Han come back during a Kylo Ren flashback, or like during a hallucination sort of thing. Kylo turns good finally. The other thing I did not like, I enjoyed the Kylo and Rey kiss. I saw it coming, but they went nowhere with it. Like, it was the most, like, what's the word for it? It was the most wooden kiss for a canon shipped couple in Star Wars that I've ever seen. Cause, you know, he brings her back to life cause she gets killed by killing Palpatine. He brings her back to life. she kisses him, and then he's gone like 5 seconds later. Like, I was okay with Kylo dying, but I think the kiss kind of ruined it. Because it could have been such a much better payoff for me. And I think a lot of people were really pissed off about how that turned out, and I was too. And then the ending where Rey says that she's Rey Skywalker. I don't know. Because we know her parents, right? We saw her parents at some point. And then she just takes the Skywalker name for some random reason because she wants to honor Luke and Leia. But, like, you're not a Skywalker. I don't care. You don't have it in your blood. You cannot be called a Skywalker. I don't know. This movie is such a mixed bag. Like, there's some really good moments, and others are just really, really questionable. So, with all that said, Rise of Skywalker for me is probably a low B. Like mid to low B. I think they really dropped the ball in making this a really satisfying conclusion to the entire Skywalker saga. Again, some good moments here and there, some really good moments, but the stuff that's not good really drags down the movie. And I can see now why people did not like it. I still enjoyed it. I liked it overall, but I cannot say I love it. I thought it was such a flat ending to the Skywalker saga, and I hope from here on out if they're making more, which I think they are, hopefully they learn their lesson and don't do that again, because you cannot have a conclusion to a saga end up like The Rise of Skywalker did. You've got to do better than that. So, yeah, there you go. That is my tier list of every Star Wars film. So, I could do an ending, but I already said I'm done. So, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know in the comments, what should I do next? What should I do for tier lists? Maybe other movies or films or TV series or whatever else, and I'll see what I can do. But I will see you guys next time. Bye!